Welcome to the SportsWagers.ca podcast with Brian Sherwood Steinberg and Matthew Finney.
Welcome to the SportsWagers.ca podcast. I am the man behind the board, Matthew Finney, joined this week and every week. Well, when we decide to show up, Brian Sherwood Steinberg, how you doing, man?
You know, Matt, this is a busy time of year. You know, we got baseball in full force, NBA and NHL playoffs coming up right around the corner. We got majors coming up in golf. So lots and lots to focus on. You know, I know this is like the time of year people go to their cottage and stuff. And I mean, I live in Toronto, and Toronto is a really busy city. And there's traffic everywhere, and there's noise everywhere. And I understand it's nice to get away, you know, go up north and kind of hang around your cottage. And I've done that, you know, I've done that. I've been away too. I was in Mexico a few years ago. And, you know, I got to say, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved going up north. Now I go up north, which I haven't been for a while, but I wake up early, right? I wake up early and I'm standing there doing fuck all. I'm like, what the fuck is there to do? You know, when I was in Mexico, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30. I'm walking around the resort, like the villa, sort of, for 3 hours before anybody wakes. I don't know what the fuck to do. I don't know what people do. Like, I understand relaxing and, you know, taking it easy and whatever, but it's not my thing. I don't like to, like, my thing is watching sports and betting on sports and watching the numbers and looking at the numbers and looking for an edge. If somebody said to me, look, I'll take you to Mexico for a week, you know, all expense paid, you know, relax, I would not go, right? I would not go, because what am I going to fuck? I go crazy. It's the same with, you know, when I go up north. I'm there for a day. I'm like, what the fuck do these people do all day? You know? So it's great when you're young. You know, you can throw the Frisbee around. You can drink beer all day. You can party and, you know, sit by the fire and play the guitar and whatever. You know, it's great. But at this point of my life, you know, I just like to look at the fucking numbers, look at the edges, you know, try and find something good and bet it. And that's, you know, that's my focus, Matt. And that takes us to baseball. And we're going to talk a little bit about baseball strategy. And, you know, you're going to hear a few strategies, and you're going to hear a lot of people. Like right now I'm seeing people talking about getting an edge, right? Getting an edge, beating the opening line, beating the line. You know, it's not rocket science, Matt. It's really not rocket science. I can look at the overnight lines and tell you exactly where the number is going to go, exactly whether it's going to move up or down. You know, this week I saw an overnight line between Washington and Atlanta, and Washington opened as $1.09 favorite. Over Atlanta, it was Cole against Julio Teheran, and Washington opened $1.08, and I made a note saying this line is going up 100% for sure. It's going way up, and I could have bet Washington at minus 108. Right there and then on the overnights. You know, sure enough, the next day I wake up and it's already up to $1.21, and an hour later it's up to $1.28. And I could have beat that line. I could beat the line every single day. But what good is it if it loses, right? There's no value in losing. You know, and when you're betting or beating the line, you know, you're kind of in a catch-22 situation, because what you're doing essentially is, yeah, you're beating the line, but you're on the exact same side as every other person on the planet, right? And that's not a good place to be. We've talked about that before. It's really not a good place to be. Right? When everybody's buying the same team, that's usually a loser. So, yeah, you can bet. I could have bet Washington at 108, and the line is 128, and I'm beating the line. But what good is it? What good is it if it loses way more often than it wins? Now, I could also sell it back, right? I could sell it back, you know, and buy Atlanta at 118 and guarantee myself a profit. But what good is that too? Like, you know, I'm going to profit a pork chop, right? Like, so now I'm going to take back, I'm going to lay $1.09 on one side and take back $1, let's say 15 on another side. So I'm making 6% on $100 or $200 or even $500, right? So I'm going to make $30, I mean, you can tie up thousands and make $30 a game if you wanted to. I guess it's all right, but there's going to be times when you also get caught where it's actually not going to go your way, and then you're at a risk for that same amount or more. And it does have to go up a significant amount, right? Like, just to break even, it's got to move 11 cents, and that's not always going to happen. So people that talk about beating the opening line, that's great. If you want to do that, great. But you're going to be on the same side as everyone, and it's going to lose more often than it wins. And it's just a side I don't want to be on. I'd rather look at the overnights, and I see Washington's $1. They opened $1.08, and later in the day or by game time or whatever, they're $1.30. I'm going to look at Atlanta a lot more closely than Washington, right? Some people think or suggest the odds makers are off. They're not off. They know exactly what they're doing, right? So you can try and beat the line. The odds makers know what they're doing. You give me the other side of that, and I'll take my chances way more often than not. That's just one, way people bet or look to bet on baseball or whatever. And, I'm just going over the scenario there, Matt.
No, that's good stuff, Ryan. We see it every day. Like, you call. I mean, it's not hard to figure out that Houston's going to get pounded, or the Blue Jays against the White Sox are going to get pounded, or whatever the situation is. There's over and under reactions every single day, and I mean, we're just trying to find more than anything, like especially in these long grinding seasons, situational plays. Like, you can't just plug real people into a computer and then just dictate what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many times you do it, if it's 10,000 or 50,000 or 500,000.
It's so true. And baseball is another game with a ton of in-game variance. You see so much in-game variance, right? A borderline strike or ball, whichever it may be, that either ended the inning or didn't. And, it could change the whole game. It could change everything. You see a hard hit ball. A hard hit ball, scorched, and it's hit right at somebody, and it's an out. And then in another game, a guy hits a bloop. Like, there's nobody in the world that could predict a swinging bunt. Guy takes a rip at a ball, and he just touches it, and it rolls up the third baseline for an infield single. And those things change, it changes everything, So there's a lot of in-game variance, but our focus, my baseball betting strategy is one that's not difficult. If you're going to play favorites, you play the run line only because you're taking back a price, and otherwise you stick to. Now, I'm not saying, never bet a favorite, but I'm just going to give you some examples if you're betting favorites in baseball or any sport for that matter. Which is why we play underdogs, why I would 100% rather lay 1.5 runs and take back a price as opposed to laying $1.60, $1.70, $1.40, $1.30. If you lay $1.30 or $1.40 in baseball every day, you're going to get buried. Believe me on this, you're going to get buried. Not on baseball, on whatever sport you're betting. If you're betting hockey, baseball, whatever. If you're laying $1.30, $1.40, if you're laying money every single day, you are going to absolutely get buried. Let's just assume you're wagering on 3 baseball games a day at an average of $1.40 per game. And you did that for an entire season at 100 a game, right? When people are laying $1.40, they think, oh, well, that's not too bad, right? So for 6 months, or let's say 180 days, that would be 540 bets at an average of $1.40 per game, right? And some games you're going to lay $1.30, or some you're going to lay $1.50, but let's just take an average of $1.40. You can do the same equations at $1.30, but we're going to use $1.40, okay? Let's assume you hit 60% of those, which is really unlikely when you consider that the best teams in baseball play about 600 ball. But we'll assume that you have a great year and hit 60% winners laying $1.40, okay? So you got 540 ball games with 60% winners. That would make you go 324 and 216, right? That would be your record. 324 wins, 216 losses, which is 108 games above 500. That sounds pretty good, right? Okay, now let's do the math, Matt. You multiply 324, that's what you have in wins, times 100 is 32,400 worth of winners. 32,400 worth of winners. Remember, you're 108 games above 500. Now let's take the losses, 216, and multiply that by $1.40. And you got $30,240 worth of losers. Okay? So by winning 60% of your games and going 108 games above 500, you have a small profit of $2,160. Okay, spanning 540 bets. That's based on a very, very solid year. The best year you'll have in your life, hitting 60% winners. A more likely scenario is you go somewhere between 45 and 55%. And when you add up those numbers, when laying the juice, the results are absolutely staggering, Matt, and they're not in your favor. Let's say you have a decent year and you hit 52% winners with the exact same wagers. 52% winners, okay? 560 games times 52% winners is 288 winners and 272 losers. 288 and 272. All right, now do the math, Matt. 288 in winners, 288 winners times 100 is 28,800 in wins, okay? 272 losers at $1.40, laying $1.40 is $38,080 in losses. Okay, so if you hit 52% winners, laying $1.40 over 540 games, you take 288 times 100, 28,000 in wins. 272 times minus 140, $38,080 in losses, which is an eye-opening $10,080 loss for the season, right? By hitting 52% winners, right? So if you're a $100 player, laying an average of $1.40 per game, and you hit 52% winners, you'll lose more than $10,000 for the season. I mean, that's incredible, right? It's incredible. Now, let's say you play strictly dogs at an average of plus 130, and you hit that same 52%, right? That same 52%. 288 losses at $100 is 28,800 in losses. 272 wins, right? At plus 130 is 35,360 in wins for a profit of 6,500. Roughly 6,500 for the season, which is a difference, right, between laying and taking back a price. It's a difference of over $17,000 for the year, Matt. Just spending $100, right? Very small numbers, okay? Very, very small numbers. It's a huge difference between winning and losing, right, between betting favorites and playing underdogs, right? Well, people are now going to argue, well, underdogs don't win that much, whatever. Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now about baseball. How many teams are there in baseball, Matt? 30? Almost 100% of those teams, like 99%, there might be one or two that don't fit into this category, are going to win 60 games and lose 60 games. Every single team in baseball is going to, they play 162, 100% of them probably are going to win 60 games and lose 60 games, right? Are you telling me that dogs don't win in baseball? They win every single day, and they win a good percentage of games, So do your work, and you can find live dogs every single day, right? And then you're going to have arguments about certain pitchers or whatever, right? Even the best pitchers in baseball. Who's the best pitcher in baseball? Clayton Kershaw? Chris Sale? Let's just even eliminate those two guys. Never bet them, never bet against them, okay? Take the best pitchers in baseball after those two guys. I don't know. Who do you got? I don't even know.
Well, you can even take Kershaw. Look at the first game of the year against the Giants when they're laying 3-1. I mean, like you say, Kershaw, for all he does, a great year for him is to win 20 games, and he's probably only going to win between 15 and 18, and maybe less.
That's exactly where I'm going, Matt. That's exactly where I'm going. You take the best pitchers in baseball are going to start between 35 and 40 games. Let's say 35 games, right? There might be one pitcher in baseball this year that wins 20 games. Clayton Kershaw might not be one of them. So even if he does win 20, there's going to be 15 games where he's leaving the game either trailing or tied, right? Doesn't mean, so, and you take some of the other best pitchers in the league, they're going to, like, a great year is 15 wins and 35 starts. That's a great year. So you got 20 games that are up in the air when these great starting pitchers leave the game, So when you're betting favorites in baseball, the risk is so great that you're going to get buried, by betting favorites, and just, just consider it, right? Or try it if you're a favorite bettor, just consider what we've just said and try it for a month and see how it goes, See how betting under, we're early in the baseball season and favorites have been doing well to start the year, and it looks very pretty on paper. It's not going to last, okay? If you're a favorite bettor in baseball, if you're laying juice in baseball or hockey or any sport for that matter, if you're laying juice, you're going to get buried. You're way better off, if you like the favorite, to lay the 1.5 runs and take back 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, whatever it is, So just keep that in mind. It's the best baseball strategy that you will get or that you will apply. And even if you do lose, right? Even if you have a bad year in baseball and lose, by betting underdogs, you're not going to lose a lot of money. You're not going to get buried. If you have a bad year betting favorites, you are going to get fucking buried. And if you have a good year, a really good year in baseball, betting favorites, well, we just went over that. You're going to win a pork chop. If you go 108 games above 500, right? 108 games. Like, that's a great year. You're going to win a pork chop betting favorites. If you go 108 games above 500 betting underdogs, you're going to make a bloody fortune for the year. So, there's a big difference, right? And underdogs, we've proven it again, right? Underdogs in baseball win every single day. The best teams every single team in baseball is going to win 60 games and lose 60 games. That only leaves 42 games, right? Another 42 games, which is going to separate the good teams from the bad teams, those 40 games, what they do with those 40 games. But even a team like, I don't know, who do you think the worst team in baseball is? San Diego, Kansas City, Detroit, those teams are going to win 60 games. So there are spots, there are great plays in baseball every day. It's a long grind. The favorites are winning early. Don't get enticed into thinking that that's the way to go. Really, the early favorites is, cashing at a high rate is really just fool's gold right now, Matt. It's going to even out.
Well, I think you just go to the website. You can look at your record over time. Last year especially, a sub 500 record, 245 and 300 for plus 46 units. And even in our worst year in 2016, almost 100 games less, 234 won to 330 lost. And it's still only a unit loss of minus 50. It definitely limits the losses. Like, you talk about being 100 games above 500. If we were ever 100 games above 500, Christ, you're looking at retirement money.
Yeah. So, again, even if you have a bad year in baseball, betting underdogs, you're not going to get buried. You can survive it, but if you have a good year, it's going to carry you for a few more years. So it's just a mindset, dogs are live every single day, and try and focus on it. And if you can't, bring yourself to betting an underdog, which I know a lot of people have a lot of difficulties pulling the trigger on an underdog that they don't think has a chance. You got to start betting minus 1.5 and take them back a price. There's two good options there, and if you apply it, just try it for a month, and you'll be in a much better position to win money.
I'm just glad you had that math figured out beside you there, because I about had a goddamn panic attack when you asked me to figure the numbers out there for a second. But Brian's got it all broken down on the website. There's an article. Just, what's it called here? Moneyline dogs are a must play. So have a look at that. Brian's got the math broken down in there as well. Of course, the website is SportsWagers.ca. Brian, what else you want to talk about?
Well, Matt, the Masters is coming up, and betting on golf is really, it's a lot of fun, right? You make a bet on a guy to win outright, and you got 4 days worth of action, or if you bet a head-to-head, right, which is what I love. I'm really doing a lot of work on the head-to-head matchups. I think there's great opportunities, and, if you bet a head-to-head matchup in golf, right, you got 4 days worth of action for a single bet, and you can find opportunities. But the process I go through in picking winners, like, I do extensive write-ups every week on golf, right? And I just want to go through the process for a second. I'm not going to go into, a lot of detail, but I have been asked about how I choose golfers and what my process is. And I'm just going to go over that really quickly about picking, because, every week there's so many guys that can win it. So for one thing, I'm not looking at guys that are 20 or 30 or 40 to 1, right? Not interested in those guys because they don't win enough to warrant betting them, right? You take a guy like Tommy Fleetwood, for instance, 30 to 1, 40 to 1, even less sometimes. I mean, the guy hasn't won on the PGA. Like, he's won some European events. He hasn't won on the PGA yet, right? There's so many other guys. A guy like, Henrik Stenson, right? 40 to 1. These are guys, like, in order to break even on that bet, he's got to win once every 40 events, and he doesn't. Like, Henrik Stenson is a guy that doesn't win he finishes in the money, but he's not a guy that's worth taking a shot at 40 to 1. You could take a guy like Brandon Steele, for instance. He's got just as good a chance as Henrik Stenson, and he's 150 to 1. So I'm always looking at that comparison. I'm looking at, these guys that are undervalued and overvalued, just like anything else. Like, you got the Masters, Shea Reevy is 175 to 1. To me, he's got just as good a shot as a guy like Matt Kuchar, who's 50 to 1, right? It's a no-brainer, So I'm looking at stuff like that, okay? I'm also looking at course suitability. I want to see how these guys do on certain courses, so you can compare courses, and that's what I like to do. If you got a guy that's a little erratic off the greens and you got thin fairways, right? Limited, they're not wide fairways and they're tree-lined fairways, and you got a guy who's erratic off the tee, that's what I mean when I talk about course suitability. I'm looking for how they do on those type of courses, There's guys that are really good on par 5s. There's guys that are really good on par 4s. There's guys that, are really good in, the short game. Right? There's guys that are long off the tee. So you got to kind of break down every single course. This is what I do. I break down the course first, and I check out the suitability, and then I start eliminating guys and trying to find guys. And that's really how I do it. So it's a week-to-week challenge, and I love the challenge, and there's going to be weeks where I miss guys for sure. Like last week at the Houston Open, there was a guy by the name of Julian Surrey, who I've played before, and he was big odds, and he was up on the leaderboard the entire weekend, and I was kind of kicking myself because I missed him. You got 120, 130 guys. I can't go over every single guy, and I'm going to miss guys from time to time, but I'm just giving you the process to which I use, and then I apply the same thing to the head-to-head matchups. So I really do the work. I'm looking strongly at situations too, right? Like last week we attacked guys that, were going to the Masters, right? Like the Houston Open to us was almost like a tune-up for these guys, like a practice round. They didn't want to take the week off and go into the Masters rusty. At the same time, they didn't want to blow their load on the Houston Open with the Masters coming up. And that actually worked out really well for us. We went 2-0-1 in the head-to-head. We actually should have went 3-0 because we had Luke List over Tony Finau. And we had a 9-stroke lead on that at one point, but they tied at -10 each, and we got a push. But the other two won fairly easily. For anyone that's interested, that's how I pick my guys every single week. And I do the write-up, and if you look in the write-up or read the write-up, I do give you a explanation or a reason why I took that individual golfer. But you got guys like, Jordan Spieth this week at the Masters, or any week. Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, JT, DJ, of course, Ricky Fowler. Like Ricky Fowler, 22 to 1, It's way too low for Ricky Fowler. Of course he can win. But he doesn't win enough to make that bet warranted. Same with Jason Day, 18 to 1. That means he's got to win one out of every. Phil Mickelson, he won a couple weeks ago, right? So that was his first event. And how many, Matt? That he hadn't won since like 2013 or something like that. I mean, that might be 150 events. And the guy's 16-1. Like, you got to be a little bit nuts to bet Nick. He can win the Masters, yeah. But you got to be kind of out of your mind to bet him at 16-1. It's just a bad wager. Bubba Watson, 16-1, bad wager. JT, 11-1, bad wager. Tiger Woods, 14-1, bad wager. Like, yeah, they can win, you know, and probably one of these guys are going to win. McIlroy, Spieth, DJ, Justin Rose, JT, Phil Mickelson, Jason Day, John Ram, right? Individually, they're bad bets. Combined, one of them is probably going to win, you know. Well, has a good chance to win. But individually or singled out, they're bad wagers. You're way better off taking a guy like Webb Simpson. You know, Webb Simpson in the Masters, 150-1. This is a guy that's favored in some events. This is a guy who's second or third choice in some events, you know. So you can apply that not to just the Masters, but to any event and look for those really undervalued golfers and attack them, right? And then you got your DFS, your golf DFS. And I've been asked about this before, about how to play DFS, whether you play the 50-50s or the tournaments, right? And I've gone over this before too, but I'll just say it again. I much prefer the tournaments. The 50-50, you know, they just, I mean, you got a way better chance, but really you don't, because even in the 50-50s, like you pick 6 golfers, they pretty much all have to make the cut for you to, you know, double your money. And if all your guys make the cut, you're probably going to, you know, make money or finish in the money in the tournaments with a chance to win way more money. So really the risk is not worth the reward in 50-50. The risk is worth the reward on the tournaments, because tournament is cheaper. You can go in for $4 or $5, you know, with a chance to win a lot of money. The double ups, you go in for $25 or $5, right? You still have to hit all your golfers. All 6 have to make the cut. You're way better off if you do pick 6 guys that make the cut for a chance at a big payday on the tournaments, and that's the way I would play them. Same with any other sport, hockey. If you finish in the money in the 50-50s, you're probably going to finish in the money in the tournaments with a chance to win a lot more. So I don't like the 50-50s at all, unless you're in, like, let's say a four-person one, but those big 50-50s, not worth it, okay? So I don't want to spend too much time on golf. A lot of people don't bet it, but I did want to go through the process, Matt.
Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I think we are all set. You know, we got the NHL playoffs coming up and NBA. We probably will have some NBA plays. We'll have lots of the NHL playoffs too. So enjoy the Masters. Good luck to everybody. It's a great event, one of the best events of the year. The hockey playoffs are right afterwards. So lots to look forward to, lots of stuff to consider, and we'll end it on that, Matt.
All right, sounds good. Give Brian a follow on Twitter at SportsWagers3. Of course, the show at SportsWagersPod. We are on YouTube, Brian. tinyurl.com/SportsWagers. If you're listening to the show there, give us a like, leave a comment, ask any questions you have. Also, go ahead and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. Also, Facebook, Facebook.com/SportsWagers. And with that, for Brian Sherwood Steinberg, I'm Matthew Finney. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the SportsWagers.ca podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. For free daily picks, visit SportsWagers.ca.